And welcome to another episode of Dynasty Mind. We are in episode 22. Tonight, I continue my trend of inviting great guests to delve into their Dynasty Mind to understand their processes. And again, we're inviting someone from Dynasty Football Factory and someone who's, I would call a devy specialist, if I'm not mistaken. LJ Chaney, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. I appreciate you having me on. We scheduled this a few weeks back. I've been busy and stuff, but I definitely wanted to jump on with you. I've watched a few episodes, and I really like what you're doing. Diving into how people play Dynasty and pretty much their overall background and their philosophies and stuff. So I think it's a really cool deal you got going on here, and I wanted to jump on. So I appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much again. Truly, I really appreciate everyone who just wants to learn about the game, more so going beyond just the discussion of players. We'll do some of that tonight. But let's get started tonight here, man. How is the 2018 season shaping up for you? What are you thinking about all these crazy moves, and with the upcoming drafts that's coming up will make it even crazier?
Yeah, it's been rather interesting. I know there's been some huge changes in values, prospects such as, players such as Jerick McKinnon heading to San Francisco and Patrick Mahomes. We knew once he got that starting job and the whole trade came about for Alex Smith when he headed to the Redskins, that boosted his value a little bit. And then the Sammy Watkins news came out, that boosted his value even tenfold. And one thing that's interesting.
Oh no, did we lose LJ again? Well, hopefully we'll get him back. We'll continue on with this trend. I know the internet Wi-Fi issues we frequently experience, but we'll wait for him a little bit. But at the same time, I guess I can talk a little bit about what the season has been like for me. I've been able to learn a lot. I think I put a lot of my ideas up on Twitter about just thinking about how the game has changed, and I'm hearing that a lot more frequently, and especially how college games have influenced the NFL draft. So this upcoming draft, I'm excited to kind of try out some of the ideas. And let me text LJ to make sure that he's doing well. All right.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
No
Sorry.
problem. Nah, no problem.
I guess I'll continue like nothing ever happened. I had to switch to the hotspot on my cell phone because I do not know what's going out there in the living room. We have a switch Wi-Fi, and my daughter's a little hooligan, so she must have messed with it. But anyways, as I was saying, as 2018 is sort of shaping up, one thing that sort of sticks out to me is young talent, and obviously it's at the running back position. We know that it's very, very apparent that the running back position, what we've seen from the 2017 rookie class, it's very strong. But then you look at the wide receiver position, and I think the lack of talent there. I wouldn't even say talent, just it's taken some time for a lot of these young guys. The past few drafts, the first rounders, they haven't really been, living up to their hype. Last year, Corey Davis, he's seen limited action because of a hammy. Mike Williams, his back, hampered his whole season, and John Ross was just sort of a lost cause. And then the year prior, it's just that's what's been interesting to me is there's sort of a lack of talent at the wide receiver position from the younger guys, and I think we really need that 2019 class to get here as soon as possible so we can make up for that. So those are sort of the things that stick out for me. There are value changes and shifts throughout free agency and everything that's happened. But yeah, I think the most apparent thing is the lack of talent at wide receiver for the young guys. I mean, the older guys are still keeping up. So
that's true. I think you brought up an interesting point that got me thinking. Is this a cyclical kind of movement, either because of talent, not lack of talent, like you mentioned, but lack of healthy wide receivers, or even just opportunities because some of the older wide receivers are sticking around longer, how much role they have on the field for the younger guys? I mean, at the same time, we do see a lot of surprising younger guys that are not talked about as like the top guys out of the draft. We have Juju Smith-Schuster that you probably gone for a mid-second or late first at the earliest, and you also see Cooper Kupp, who was definitely a mid-round draft, and they all contribute immediately. But yeah, running backs are dominating again. I don't know how long you've been in the fantasy football kind of area. I've been here for almost just 10 years, and from where I started, it's more so the running backs that were dominant. Always draft your running backs in the beginning. And we saw a little bit of a shift to the wide receiver at some point, and now we're coming back to running back. So I don't know if it's like a cyclical kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's funny because I started fantasy. It's been quite a while as well, and I remember you're taking those running backs early, and then I didn't start Dynasty until that phase to where wide receivers were king. You know what I mean? And they tend to hold their value, a lot longer but I try to sort of figure, I'm in a win now mode every single year, and if that running back's gonna pop, then I'm gonna grab him. But yeah, I definitely get what you're saying there, and we're heading back towards that the dominant running backs, which I'm okay with.
Mm-hmm. Great, and that's a great segue. If you would like, because we are delving into your mind, people who maybe want to learn the LJ Chaney way of dynasty football. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved, what got you started, and how you've just shaped your process as you go, and how important it is for you to have something of a blueprint, of a process, of a philosophy.
Yeah, so what started me, obviously, fantasy football. I started with a group of friends. We still have the same 12 guys. Actually, we've switched. We've substituted one guy out. We've had the same 12 though for I want to say 5 years now. And prior to that, it was before switching that guy out, it was another, I think, 4 years. So yeah, I started with fantasy, and obviously I love college football. I love the NFL. I'm a Huskies fan. I'm a Seahawks fan. And the dynasty world, how I got involved with that, is obviously I liked the whole idea surrounding around building your own rosters, and trying to control it, because once we got Pete Carroll and John Schneider up to the Seahawks, it sort of expanded my mind on, how these guys scout and how they evaluate talent and what they do. And that led me to do my own scouting. I sort of, Seahawks Twitter is a fragile place, and it's a little different. So I sort of backed off, and I was like, I want to do the work myself, and I want to scout these guys myself, not really rely on these guys. Don't knock on them, but just Seahawks Twitter is a little different. So I wanted to do it myself, and that's what I did. And I always, my philosophy, I base it around, watching guys on tape, and then I will add analytics, and I rely, when it comes to analytics, I'm not the best with it, but I have a few certain guys that I'll rely on based off of, how people are performing, and all that great stuff. And I do not have a strict blueprint on what I do for Dynasty. It changes for me from draft to draft, year to year. And I sort of try to diversify, obviously in like a super flex or whatever. For me, I know I'll take guys early. I'll take quarterbacks early, and that can be a death sentence with letting other talents slide. But at the same time, I want to be locked in. I want to have those guys and not have to rely on picking rookies in future rookie drafts at the quarterback position, so I can take skill positions. And, so, I wish I could sit here and tell you that I have this clear-cut blueprint to dynasty success, but I don't. I switch it up, and it just varies league to league. It varies format to format. And, obviously, I know one of the next questions, I'll save it for the next question that we got on the show sheet, but I know one thing that I have shifted from, I guess, is more so leaning towards, I don't really go off that 3-year rule. A lot of people, they tend to lean on that 3-year rule where you're projecting 3 years out. I sort of just try to play in the right now and then adjust as the season goes on. Let's say I have a crap team going. I'll look at those guys that are competing, and I'll try to, offload a talent like maybe a Julio Jones or Melvin Gordon for younger assets that they have that they don't need this year, so that's how I go about it. I used to just love the young talent and always build with young talent, but now I try to look at right now and then adjust as I go along for the year. So that's sort of what I do. It's always sort of that win now mentality, but yeah, it's done. It did me well for a few years, and this last year was terrible. I didn't win any single league that I was in. So, up till this point, it's done me some good.
Yeah, don't feel bad. I had a rough year as well. I mean, I made it to playoffs in all of them and won none of them. But that is the nature of fantasy, and we love to do this because we get to do this every year and can try to compete.
Mhm.
I think some of the elements I did pick up from you is that you do know your strength, and that is why you are able to focus a lot more on the win now, on grabbing players that are useful to you and win this year, because your strength lies in understanding the rookies, understanding the players that are upcoming, and you already have like a leg up, I guess, on most of your league mates who are just relying on the rookies that are upcoming. Well, you already have like a way you're from way more familiar with the players even before their names are in the minds of people. So I think that's sort of what I'm sensing from your process, and I think you do have a process going on. It's just not formulated in word, and that's okay because we change, we evolve. So if you can think about it, what is the one of the biggest thing that I guess that you see in yourself changing from 2017 or 2016 into 2017, and how you look forward to 2018?
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say for this question is one area, since from a few years back, I really, because I watch these rookies and because, I watch these guys from when they come out of high school throughout college and into their rookie season. And because I did that, I sort of overvalued those rookie picks, and I'd put a premium on them. When I first started Dynasty, I was far too high on the idea of future success through rookie drafts and placed a premium on those picks and paying top dollar to acquire those picks, and I've laid off and now what I do is I will project years out, and I'll maybe a year or two out based off my roster build, my weakness, my strengths, and I'll use those future projections to target those areas of need. For example, last year in rookie drafts, I there was one league where I was strong at running back and I needed some wide receiver help. And I ended up moving back a few spots here and there within last year's rookie draft and acquired some 19 first because I know that the 2019 class at wide receiver is going to be really strong, and then, this year I'll analyze a lot of my rosters and I'll peg, which teams I need running back help at. And I know running back, it changes year to year and you can luck out and get those guys that produce that land in the right situation. But the 2020 class running backs is just insane. And the depth throughout college right now is insane at the running back position. So I figured, some of my rookie drafts where I need help for future reference, I can trade back a few spots, pick up those 2020 first and lean that way. But I I think I value rookie picks the right way now. Like I said, I used to put a premium on them, and I will. I'm not all about the rookie picks. I'll go and acquire talent right now that I know is going to produce. For example, just a few weeks ago, I ended up trading 1.05, the 1.10, and the 2.10 for Odell Beckham Jr., which I felt like I made out like a champ with that trade. Because of that news that came out with Odell Beckham. Oh man, I'm trying to think of. It was right around the time where there was some knocks on what was going on. Oh yeah, it was the pizza incident where that girl's snorting or she has like a mirror with cocaine on it, and that sort of freaked out that owner, and then I went and acquired him. So yeah, I can see. I do know these guys from a few years out, and I tried to sort of focus on my strengths, my weaknesses, where I need to build, and sort of adapt throughout my roster and throughout rookie drafts based off projections of future positions. So
Yeah, and think for those, and I'll have an episode upcoming with devy specifically, and that'll help people appreciate devy is not easy. There are tons of players out there, and to pare them down, you would need to invest time, and I think you would need to have some form of a feel for who might be succeeding in the NFL. They might be great at college games, but once they get to the NFL,
mhm.
it just changes. It just changes for them, and it's always for many it's a dart throw. But for you, what I'm hearing is you are very confident in your ability to understand which player um, might have the best chance of succeeding in the next level. Yeah.
I,
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, no, I try to. And the thing with Debbie though is, and I know this isn't a Debbie show, but the thing that surrounds Debbie, I think, is when we're writers for site, I like to write, about current things. I like to write about devy. I like to write about rookies. And even though, my, I guess, specialties is devy, I still feel like you need a team. I can't go and watch 590 players all by myself. That's just insane. I mean, especially when these are underclassmen, prospects coming out in the draft, there's tape. There's tape all over the place. There's cut ups of these players. Devies, you got to go out, watch full game footage, and log the targets. Or, for example, if it's a receiver, you got to log the targets, go and cut to that spot within the game to really watch these guys. And I can't do it by myself. So I think, Devy, it is important to have a team surrounding you. And that's what we got over at DFF_Devy and the Devy Watch. So it's cool. And I think we got a decent grasp on it, and there's always going to be misses, but I think we sort of got it pared down to, what we're looking for in terms of future success. So,
yeah, that's definitely it's an added fun factor for me. Being involved in the devy is because it has somewhat of a feel of a scout, a fantasy scout, or looking at these players from way far out and just noting their name somewhere, filing them. I have a whole spreadsheet of just recruits, the top recruits, and then every year I'll go and check which names I need to take out, which names I need to add to them. So that's how I started. But going back to you though, for this year, guide us through. We are in the middle of the off season. Things have been fluctuating. Free agency we just talked about. Rookie draft that's upcoming in a month. How do you keep yourself like your process? How do you keep your process through this fluctuation of values?
Yeah, I think it's important to stay, really active this time of the year. It's important to stay active all the time, but right now is when, people are just so open to trading their teams. As much as we like to be objective and keep our teams out of it, there's a lot of people, whether you're a Vikings fan, Redskins fan, whatever the case is, where if you're familiar with your league mates and you know which team they like and all that stuff, you can sort of I don't want to say exploit that because that seems a little harsh, but you can sort of identify that and use that when you're trading players. If somebody's team picks up a certain player and then they want to add that player to the roster, you're sort of able to use their new values to acquire those guys or to trade those guys off and acquire assets. And so I think it is important to stay involved right now. Because, like, for example, when we started this, I was talking about Patrick Mahomes. He's a guy who he went through the roof, and like a Jerick McKinnon. There's been some crazy trades that are going on right now for Jerick McKinnon. And although I do see him being successful with the 49ers, I'm not going to place that premium on him because up to this point, what we've seen from him is I think the lack of feel at the running back position, his lack of vision. But if he can be like a Royce or like a Devonta Freeman for Kyle Shanahan and his Falcons offense, and I think he can have that success. He's just not the pure runner that Devonta Freeman is. He is 10 times more athletic, but he's not that pure runner. He lacks that vision. But if he can be successful out of the backfield, then it's like, okay, yeah, it's going to be a great target. But I think it's important to, not overvalue those certain situations like a Mike Gillislee last year when the Patriots signed him. He went through the roof. His ADP shot up. And I think it's important to sort of settle down and sort of play that realistic or sit back and be realistic about certain situations and not overbuy, I guess, but definitely try to oversell on those players. And, if they end up booming, then, so be it, I think. But I think it's important to sort of follow those value fluctuations and sort of capitalize on it. And, so that's what I try to do. I've traded off on McKinnon. I've traded off on Mahomes. I've traded off of Sammy Watkins and even a Tyreek Hill because I do prefer Sammy in that offense now, but Tyreek Hill that could sort of dig into his production. So it is important to sit back and just sort of see, where people are going at in ADP drafts and, where the big time analysts on Twitter are valuing certain players.
Yeah, that is actually a very interesting way of looking at it. And I agree a lot with you. The moment a player moves from a different situation or see an increase or projected increase in their workload, you see a boost, a spike in their value at that time. I know Mahomes had that spike, Jerick McKinnon that definitely had that spike. And it may come down a little. I don't think it'll come down a lot until we actually see real football being played. But at the same time, you know, this player probably doesn't seem to fit for me. I like the player, but I'm not going to, if there's a better sell opportunity, I'll take the sell opportunity. So I really like that, and I really like that approach to help you through and paying attention. I think that's the one thing you stress, paying attention through what's going on. So I'll give you a moment since the draft is upcoming to kind of talk about, you know, where has your process led you to certain rookies that you want to pay more attention to, or rookies that you think that the consensus may be overvaluing?
Yeah, and you know, one thing that I've thought about with rookies, I mean, I'm a tape first guy. I watch, you know, I watch a ton of tape. I watch these guys, and I like, you know, to focus on their movements, you know, their vision, their overall specific abilities within an offense. You know, what type of role they're going to play. For example, like a receiver, what type of role are they going to play in the NFL? Do they translate more so towards outside an X wide receiver or a slot guy? Running backs, do they have that ability to catch balls out of the backfield? You know, even if they have limited production, do they show that natural catching ability at times? You know, how is their vision? Because that's important. You know, do they have the feel for the game? Can they adjust to the flow of the defense and find those cutback lanes? Just all that stuff. So I'm a tape guy first, but I do like to look at the numbers, and I do like to use the numbers in terms of dominator rating, market share for these guys at the college level, because I feel analytics within Twitter has such a huge effect on how guys value players now. You know, like the Matt Kellys. I can name a ton of guys. You know, and when it comes to breakout age and dominator rating, I like to know that as we come into these guys being rookies, because I know that's where the value increase is going to go, and that's where people are going to start to, I guess, adjust their rankings and sort of identify those players like a DJ Moore, for example. But I like to follow along those numbers just so I know who's going to see that bump in value based off of all those analytics guys that are on Twitter, because I think they do have an effect. I think they have a huge effect on how people value rookies and which rookies they value. So I'm a tape guy first, and you know, I like to watch that tape, and the main analytical stuff or number stuff is sort of based around dominator rating and breakout age, because I know a lot of cool people have done the studies on it and the importance of that and and players succeeding. I think that the importance surrounding that is pretty big. But you know, the guys that I do like, and I'm sort of basing this more so on where these guys are going in rookie drafts and their values. Traquan Smith, the wide receiver from UCF, he's one that I've dove into, and I think he's a guy that can succeed on the outside. You know, he's a guy that just has tremendous length. He's got some 34-inch arms, but he can win with his body. He can catch through that contact. He rises up, has very, very good hands, strong hands, and I think he's one that he might end up going a little bit later, but he could fall into a situation to where, you know, he sort of comes out of nowhere and ends up somehow being, you know, a low level wide receiver one for a team. You know, not a wide receiver one for fantasy football, but for a team. Another one that's going under the radar is Ryan Nall from Oregon State. He's a big back. Want to say he's around 6'2", 232, something of the sort. He tested pretty well at the combine, you know, and he showed really good agility drills. He's one that he's so versatile. He's a guy that you can send out of the backfield, run routes. You can split him out and he can run a route for you. He's very strong. He's got very loose, fluid hips. He cuts really well. And on top of that, he has very good top speed, long speed, I think, you know, for his size. So he's another one out of Oregon State. Right now, I don't even think he's being drafted in rookie drafts. But I think that his versatility for a team, it's going to allow him to end up on a roster and find a role. And there's no I'm not against spending, you know, a fourth or fifth round pick on him, because I think once the draft comes, he will end up on a team. And, you know, DJ Moore, obviously, you know, I spoke of him from Maryland. He's the obvious one. You know, he's a guy that I own in a devy league, only one devy league, though I wish I would have drafted him in more. But he's been completely dominant throughout his college career within that offense. You know, he's one that he's just a feisty player. He's very good after the catch. He's very strong, catches through contact. He's sort of raw in terms of his route running ability and his route tree, but I think he's one that, you know, if you get him in the right offense and the right scheme, he's a guy that's going to develop well for you. He's got really good work ethic. He survived a number of quarterbacks at Maryland this past year, and he still was able to produce. I think they had 4 starting quarterbacks this past year because of injury, and they continued to get injured, and he persevered, and he worked through that, and he did a damn good job. And last one that I really like is Nick Chubb. You know, he's one that I've been vocal about for quite some time, and I'm glad he tested the way he did at the combine, because what I've seen on tape from him, he's very fluid. He's really gifted laterally. I think, you know, he's not to the extent obviously of like a Saquon or even a Sony Michel, but he has enough, and he can elude defenders. On top of that, I like his style. I'm a guy that likes a running back that shows no fear, who's very physical, and he has that. And on top of that, in my opinion, he has the best vision within the class. So adding all that with his athleticism that he showed, I think he's going to be a really good back at the next level. Overvaluing guys, I don't know, the values within, you know, Twitter. It's so different. You know, you have guys that base everything off tape, and you guys have guys that use analytics. And Calvin Ridley will be completely overvalued one spot, he'll be undervalued the next. Then you'll have like a James Washington, who is, you know, a wide receiver one spot, and then based off of tape guys, he's wide receiver 15. I like James Washington, he's my wide receiver 3. But this is a different class. I typically, there will be guys where I hear their name and them getting hyped in previous classes where I'm just like, no. But this year it's a little different. It's I'm not too, I don't dislike too many players in this draft. You know, I think a lot of values are adding up to where I would be comfortable taking a certain player. But I think Ridley, he's one that I might not touch in the first round. I guess I could say he's being a little overvalued because of his ceiling. I want to aim for the stars. I want to shoot for the stars and get those guys that I think can develop into a true X, you know, and he's more so a safe floor guy. But yeah, I think you know, I've been rambling for quite some time. So yeah, that's where I'm sitting. You know, I don't see any values that are too far off, or ones that bug me. But I like this class. There's not a lot to dislike about it outside of top tier talent at the wide receiver position. The depth is fine for me.
That's fantastic. And that is some sort of the themes that I keep hearing when I pay attention. Every year coming to a class, there is a theme that I pick up. Last year, it was the wide receiver class is not as good, but you see people building up, pushing certain wide receivers up. I think it remains to be seen. It's unfair to, I guess, a John Ross or a Mike Williams, because we haven't seen anything from them yet. But coming into this year, I had the same sense as you, is that it's sort of different in the way we approach the prospects and the way we kind of look at them. Because for one thing, I think Sigmund Bloom just put it well, is that wide receivers will have a special role, have a specialty kind of role. So if they land with a certain type of scheme, type of team, they can be anywhere from a amazing wide receiver 2 or 3 that immediately produces for your team, or you have some of those who will comes in with high grade and being touted, but lands on a team that doesn't suit them as well, and you'll find yourself not getting the production that you need from them immediately. So I think you put it well to say that this class is different, is special in a way, and there's a lot to like about this draft class. So that's awesome. That's awesome to hear about your process, how you share, how you view the players, how you kind of look at them from even starting from high school, which is, I think it's kind of crazy but amazing. So we're ending our time together, LJ, and I would like to go through one more segment with you that's called the Rorschach Inkblot test. Basically, the test is a psychology or psychiatry kind of test where they show you an ink blot. It's a very it doesn't mean anything. It's like a blot, and then what happens is you tell me what you see, kind of deal. And this is how I'll do it, by presenting you players. What do you see of these players going into the 2018 season? So if you're ready, I'm going to toss you the first guy on my list, Jamal Williams.
So what do I see with Jamal Williams? I see a 2-down plotter that may be overtaken by an Aaron Jones, who I prefer, and even possibly overtaken by another rookie running back in this class. So Jamal Williams, I say low ceiling, low floor. I guess that's sort of how I'm viewing him.
Okay. So would it be somewhere along the lines of like a Chris Ivory, maybe some RJP. How do you? Well, I might save that for us a different time. I have to think about how some RJP run comes. Let me throw you the second guy, Kenny Stills.
Kenny Stills, I think what he was able to show last year, and I know they've had a few additions. I still feel like that role that he played within last year's offense continues, and he might even best those numbers that he had last year. I don't know, he's the guy that I like. He's one that for some reason I've always liked, Kenny Stills, and I still see him, developing. I still see him. Obviously, he's not a very young wide receiver anymore, but I still sort of view him as that. And I feel like what they've done with that offense, shifting out Landry Jones, him being the guy that's been there for the longest time, I think he's one that I think he's sort of trending upwards. I think it's sort of safe to assume that he's going to have that same floor, but he might be able to top it.
Fantastic. Great. That's great to hear. Kenny Stills is one that I did monitor. Didn't like him as early bit because that's my fault for pigeonholing him as just a deep threat. But he showed that he's much better than a deep speed guy, and sort of building into his own. Just excited to see him back with Ryan Tannehill. Last guy on my list, on the older side, Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, Demaryius Thomas, he's I just see him trending downward, and I hate to say that because there's a lot of guys that we peg that they're on the downhill slide and then they continue to produce. And he's a guy that, given the opportunity, he's one that can produce. But I don't know. For me, I just don't feel too excited about Demaryius Thomas. I could be completely wrong, but I'm not too. Yeah, I'm not getting up for that one. So he's sort of he's a fade for me, but I'd grab him at the right price, obviously. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling about Thomas.
Yeah, that's good. That is fair to say about him. Demaryius Thomas has been on a interesting swing in his value for the last 2 years, and right now we'll have to see what he does with Case Keenum at the helm. Well, LJ, thank you so much for tonight. It's been great to talk about you, getting to know your process, getting to know your Dynasty Mind. I'm excited for your work. Why don't you tell our guests where they can find you and where they can find your work?
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. This is I like the concept that you have going on here, and the guests that you acquire to go through their process and stuff. So I appreciate that. And you can find me on Twitter at Pacific Scouting. I do host the Devy Watch podcast. It's at Devy Watch on Twitter, and we talk all the prospects, the developmental guys from high school through college, all the way through the rookie season. And one more thing that we do have going on right now is the 2018 DFF Devy Watch, where we profile over 240 skill position guys in college football to project them to the next level. And even if you're not a Devy guy, you can use this to sort of gauge certain values, future values, like I was talking about earlier in that episode, where the 2019 class is strong at wide receiver, lacks at running back, possibly. And the 2020 class, very strong at running back, and the verdict's still out for wide receiver, so on and so forth. So that's coming out March 31st, and it's available for pre-order right now over at DynastyFootballFactory.com.
Excellent. And for those who can find me, I am at FF Dynasty 101. I am holding a contest to win I'll randomly draw for every 25 likes on my pinned tweet. You'll get a chance to win one of these draft guides. So if you want to try out the Devy Watch as a winner, you'll get that for free from me. So thank you again, LJ, for tonight. Guys, come back for us next week. We'll continue on with fantastic guests and keep sharpening those dynasty processes.